Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the panel on audio distribution. I am Fonteneau. I am with Blackstone Publishing. For anyone who are not familiar, oh, someone is having fun. For anyone who is not familiar with Blackstone Publishing, we are an independent publisher who started as an audiobook publisher and then made a leap to traditional publishing 8 years ago. I am joined with that wonderful cast of industry experts, and they're going to introduce themselves. Yep.
Oh. Hi. Oh, hello. I'm Hammond, and I am the head of merchandising at 20Books. 20 is an audiobook retailer that focuses on sharing deals on audiobooks in a daily email, but also is a full-scale retailer as well.
Hi, good morning. I'm Susan McCulloch, and I'm a senior director at Barnes & Noble, and I oversee the Nook business, but also Barnes & Noble Press, which is our self-publishing platform. In absentia, I am representing for Jennifer Perry, who is the director of audiobooks for Barnes & Noble as well.
Hi, Rebecca Colbert, local. Thanks for coming to my weird city. I forget how weird it is. I hope you've all had a good week. I'm in charge of collection development for the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. We're about the 7th or 8th largest library district in the nation, and we have a giant collection budget of $10 million a year. So hopefully I can give you some tips on how to get your work in my library.
Hello, I'm Greg Boguslawski, Executive Vice President of Blackstone Publishing. I've been with the company for about 20 years and have been involved with various facets of the operation, from sales, marketing, distribution, publicity, and acquisitions, and have seen a lot of growth and changes in the audiobook industry over the years.
All right, so if we look at our agenda today, and as you look at expanding your distribution to reach a wider audience, one of the things is for you to stay connected with the industry and kind of the trends. So we wanted to share with you some data about the market. Then we will have a few questions for the panel. I will have a few questions for the panel. And then we'll open the floor for questions if you have any. And then we'll close the panel from there. So let's get going. So I know we have pretty limited time, so I'll go pretty quick on the industry data, but if you have any further questions or need any follow-up, just let us know. All right, first I wanted to start with an overview of the publishing industry as a whole. So publishing revenue total about $28.10 billion in 2022, and that's an 11% growth in the last 5 years between 18 and 2022. And I wanted to show you kind of the breakdown by format and see the growth or the decrease. So I thought that was interesting to see the growth for hardbacks, paperbacks, but mass market and ebooks, so little declined. I mean, mass market saw a big decline. Ebooks, pretty stable, but what was kind of noteworthy was the digital audio, so an increase of 71% in the last 5 years. So if you're not in audio, you may want to think about it. So dipping deeper into the audio industry, just showing you the growth in sales revenue. So those numbers are pretty spectacular. As you can see, it's been a double-digit growth over the last 5 years. You could see in 2018 a big increase of 34%, mainly due to the volume of books that publishers have brought to the market, and then of course the impact of COVID as well. And then giving you a little more detail as well on the audio industry, on who and how much. So 53% of customers 18 and up have listened to an audiobook, and it's up from 45% in 2022. So 50% of the listeners are 18 to 44, so it's significantly higher than 49% of the US population, to give you kind of a ratio. So the majority of the audio listeners are on the younger age group. And then finally, 29% of the audiobook listeners identify as African American and Hispanic. So it's closely matching the US population as well. And some of the key findings about usage. So audio listeners return to their pre-pandemic routine about audio consumption. So we're about 6.3 titles a year, down from 6.9 in 2022. But what I found interesting was 56% of listening parents said that their kids listen to audiobooks, and compared to 35% in 2020. So there's definitely a big growth in that segment. Coming to categories, total fiction, it's 64%, and it has increased as a proportion of total sales for the second consecutive year. Fiction, 20.3, and science fiction, fantasy, 14.7. Those are the two largest genre overall. The fastest growing genres, humor, 88% growth, nonfiction, and romance. And then on the fastest growing categories, you see children, non-English language. And so the non-English language is now about 4% of the market. And then moving on to the libraries, because it's always interesting to see those trends. Sorry. US public libraries are definitely more popular and digital than ever. So we roughly have 17,500 public libraries in the United States. And among the US population, over 53% of the population borrow from libraries. So that's roughly 174 million people. 58.75% of the total library collection is digital, which is more than ever. And then over 37% of all collection use is digital. So just to give you an idea on how many items that represent, Americans annually borrow an estimated 2 billion items from public libraries. And then I wanted to touch on library programs because they're really on the rise. So more library programs, about 6 million. And higher programs attendance, so roughly recording about 125 million, which is more than ever. So over 10% of all visits to libraries are through library programs, and 84% increase from 2009. So it's showing the relevance of libraries for the community and also for the industry. So states with the most programs per capita have more visits, 88%. Collection use, 51% plus, and registered borrowers, 12%, and states that do not have or have lesser programs per capita. So, which is really interesting. I don't know if, Rebecca, you want to touch on programming a little bit and see what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I specifically from the author point of view, we have book clubs at every single one of our branches. We have 26 branches. And they don't have to be in person. We do a lot of virtual programming. Everybody got used to Zoom. They love it if they don't have to get dressed and leave the house to attend a book club meeting. That includes you, the author, as well as our customers. They range from anywhere from 10 to about 50. One of our biggest, most successful book clubs is something called Tales and Cocktails. It's after hours. You get a drink. You talk about your book. We have a raffle. It's lots of fun. So we are, I'm a bookie, so books aren't dead, libraries aren't dead, but programming is where it's at. It's where we get grant money to build wonderful buildings. It's where we can do outreach. Programs matter, but that does not mean that authors don't have the ability to participate in our programming.
Yeah, thank you. So let me ask a few questions to the panelists. So I'll start with a very general questions on whoever wants to step in. How important is it for publishers and authors to adapt to the audiobook format in today's market?
I think you've already proven it
I know.
with your stats. 2 billion and the billions. I think from the Barnes & Noble perspective, we're always looking now at the data, right? What does somebody buy? Are they buying the ebook? Are they buying the audiobook? Are they buying both? So we're actually a little new to audiobooks. It just launched about a year and a half ago because we couldn't not. But it was a huge undertaking. So we're a little early in the data, but one of our MOs is give the reader what they want, how they want it, where they want it, kind of thing. And I know that the theme of today is going wide, and so it's just kind of that plug of just making sure that you're everywhere, whether it's us or it's through the libraries or it is through Amazon or what have you. Just don't limit, because your audience, whoever they are, make sure that you're kind of touting those different avenues.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's really interesting about the audio audience is that they aren't really loyal to particular even retailers or particular genres. So maybe they're an ebook reader who reads mystery, but when in audio they only listen to romance. They do it for a particular reason, and I think that's what's really interesting about them. It's not taking away from another format necessarily, and a lot of times it's additive, and that's what we see with much of our consumer insights, is that most people are reading and listening to audiobooks, and they're doing it on different places and different formats, and they're listening to different categories, which I think is fascinating. And that's how I consume audio too, so I can relate.
All right, so Suzanne, can you provide an overview of what Barnes & Noble Press is and how it serves authors and self-publishers? And are there any unique features or advantage that set Barnes & Noble Press apart from other self-publishing platforms?
Sure, thank you so much. I did do a presentation the other day, so if anyone was there, I hope it isn't too boring. But so Barnes & Noble Press is our self-publishing platform, on par with what you see with Kobo, The Writing Life, or KDP. So Barnes & Noble Press is its own kind of direct line to Barnes & Noble in particular. Audiobooks, I have to say, because again, that's the theme, is that we get our audiobooks via Spotify right now. So that is the distribution that we are taking in, maybe somewhere down the line that's going to change. But if you do have ebooks, because I'm sure all of you are operating in many, many formats, I think what I would say about what differentiates us, I think it's a very friendly platform. We are book lovers at the heart of it. We're also a very tiny team, so we're very direct with you in terms of marketing opportunities and what we can do for the indies. We're very supportive of the indies. I have some stats that I'd be happy to share with you. I have a business card, but again, it's that idea of going wide. We welcome it. We don't talk about exclusivity. That is not important to us. We also see ourselves as our own thing. We're not competing necessarily with others. We're just doing our thing, which is the heart is the books. So we also have the stores, which is a whole other component, but I don't want to take up too much time. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca, what is your library's current approach to offering audio content to patrons? And can you share any insight into the usage patterns of audio materials in your library system?
I'm going to stand up because I feel very short down here and I want to see you. If I was teaching, I would sit on the desk here. So audio's funny. We still have audiobooks on CD. We collect for adult, children, and teens in that format. But teen audiobooks on CD have taught us that we're about to lose a whole generation of CD users because young adult material is like the least used of audiobooks on CD. That said, we retain a very popular, very well-used collection of adult audiobooks on CD. Even though cars aren't sold with CD players anymore, people still want that physical item. We're out west, everybody drives long distances, so if they do have a car or a portable player, that's how they use it. Digital audio is huge. We circulate probably 6 or 7 times as much digital audio as we do physical, and we circulate a lot. Our digital collection gets about 300,000 circs a month, almost 50-50 ebook versus e-audio. And it's audio that's creeping up. Ebook is kind of steady, but audio, because it's that participatory experience, it's kind of entertainment, you can do it while you're multitasking. It exploded during COVID, and then it dropped off, and now it's back up at like higher than it was during the COVID year. So I cannot say enough how much it's a growing format, and people love it. One of the problems we have is we still have to buy everything, physical format and digital. We spend about $400,000 a year on digital audiobooks. That's a tremendous amount. We are limited. If you sign an exclusive, we cannot buy it. If it is available via a platform that will not sell to us, we cannot buy it. We use 2 or 3 major platforms, Overdrive, Boundless, and Hoopla. And technology-wise, that's pretty much where it starts and ends for us. It has to be available in those distribution channels. We'd love if we could buy Barnes & Noble audiobooks on Spotify, but Spotify won't sell to us. So you have to consider the damage that exclusive agreements can do. We want to put you in the library. We want to make it accessible. I will say digital is much easier for us to purchase, promote. We take risks digitally that we don't physically because it's not taking up space. So we lean heavily towards that. We would buy something in digital that we might not buy in print because you're just throwing it out there, seeing if anybody finds it. So did you want to take questions now or later? Overdrive, Boundless, Overdrive, Boundless, and Hoopla are the platforms that we collect for the library district. That's the technology that's made available to us for our patrons. I know that Hoopla, I believe they are Midwest Tapes, and they are eager to discover and license content. But those are big markets for all libraries. That's the thing, libraries don't do things differently, we all do it the same. So you want to keep that in mind when you're trying to broaden your horizons. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Thank you. Ali, how have publishers and authors benefited from using Chirp and BookBub to promote their books? And what success stories or achievements are you particularly proud of in terms of how Chirp and BookBub have impacted the careers of authors and the success of books?
Good question. I think I will take things back and say, first I'll explain the connection between Chirp and BookBub. Chirp is a sister company to BookBub, and Chirp was started because BookBub was hearing from our customers and from our author and publisher partners about how much they wanted a BookBub-like product, but for audiobooks. And the audiobook market is complicated. So instead of just making audiobooks a part of BookBub, we decided to become a retailer ourselves and launch Chirp. So Chirp is, you can go and buy anything from Chirp, any audiobook from Chirp. But the best experience and the most engaged experience we have for our customers is what we call our daily deals email. And that's an email that goes to customers every single day, showing them audiobooks deals, so low-priced books between like 99 cents and $5.99 in the categories or genres that they've indicated to us that they're interested in. So it's a very targeted email, and it has great engagement, and it's just been our kind of bread and butter and main product forever. And as an author, using Chirp or BookBub, because both of our services provide that kind of daily deals and email experience, it can be pretty life-changing for the book to get a deal on the platform. Our users are really, really supportive of independent authors. They love independent authors. We make space for independent authors in that email every single day and make sure they're a huge representation of what we're sending out to our partners. But so we've just heard great stories all the time about how successful a Chirp deal can be in helping launch either a series or a new book or just continued success for an author. I think one of my favorite things about working at the company is like weekly we hear from our support team about success stories from authors, and it really is amazing to hear the kind of impact one of those deals can have on a book. So it's great.
I read that email every day and I buy some of the audiobooks.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
They have a great library.
Thank you. Greg, could you elaborate on the challenges and opportunities that audiobook distribution poses for independent authors and publishers, and what advice you would give any new and aspiring authors who are considering creating audiobook version of their work?
Sure. I think the obvious hurdles and challenges that come is the production cost in audiobooks. Of course, you have the narrators, the engineers, possibly producers, directors, and then the audio proofers that go through everything. Those costs can land anywhere between $400 and $600 per finished hour. And when you think about the average audiobook being 10 hours long, you can see what type of significant investment comes with that. I think some of the other challenges as well for independent authors is market access, right? Blackstone works with over 65 digital audiobook platforms throughout the world. All of those relationships and deals are made on a one-on-one basis. So, of course, your time is extremely valuable, of course. So you looking at all the other options for you to get your books out there and perhaps trying, if independent publishing is what's paying the bills, like, please, by all means, don't stop doing that. But look at your other opportunities and options. Look at maybe specific projects or a specific title that you can try into a traditional market. And then just getting that market access is one thing, but getting your titles marketed and promoted within the sea of all the audiobooks that these platforms are releasing on a daily, monthly basis. We have a team that works very closely with all 65 of these digital platforms. They're all running specific promotions regarding titles and genres, and understanding what those promotions are, when they're happening, getting your selected titles in front of them. So hopefully they're choosing them for, front page promotions, the new release scrollers, front banners. All of that is really important for you to kind of set yourself apart from the many, many audiobooks that are being released, on a regular basis. But as you've seen from the stats that Ann shared, there is a huge upside to getting your books into the audio market. It's a whole nother community of book lovers. The Audio Publishers Association, just like the conference that we're at today, hold their annual conferences. There's thousands of voiceovers and narrators and producers and engineers that all get together. They love to talk about books. They love to talk about their favorite authors. There is a whole community of listeners that not only follow authors but follow narrators and choose titles based on those narrators. So just understanding the opportunities and getting yourselves immersed in those various communities will help you kind of advance. And again, it's all about expanding your readership and your exposure.
Yes, and I would like to add one more piece to what Greg is saying is you have partners that would consider, pitches for audio licensing, but also for distribution for any authors who may want to keep a little more control over your rights, and if you want to handle the production as well. So there's definitely different opportunities out there. So just ask questions and see what works for you. But definitely encourage you to test and go wide. So that leads me to my little summary before we go to questions. So obviously the decision to go exclusive or wide really depends on your goals and circumstances. So you have to consider, your target audience, your genre, your marketing strategy when making your decision. But if you choose to go wide, you're looking at a broader audience, a reduced dependency from the one partner. You can diversify your income, and it gives you a little more control and freedom. So just keep that in mind as you make your decision when you want to publish your next audiobook. So we're definitely happy to take any questions you might have. Yeah, and the mic is right here.
We have a couple of questions from your virtual audience. Janet asks, what is the process for an author to pitch their book for a library book club? Anything we can do to improve our chances of getting a spot?
Okay, I'm going to take that. Most large library districts should have a department in charge of community engagement. If not that, you want public services. promote yourself first. Go on TikTok and do a book talk, because that's the one avenue in recent memory that circumvents a whole lot of publishers and distributors and traditional marketing. Go direct to the people. You can approach libraries. Most libraries, if you're like mine, have a collection development policy that says your book has to have a review somewhere. And that review is not Aunt Edna that went on Amazon and wrote it for you. Call up Kirkus. If you don't know Kirkus, get yourself a Kirkus review. Yes, they're paid. We still see them as valid, because even Kirkus won't review something that they think is awful. So you need a review, you need some promotion, you need a leg to stand on, and then you want to ask for community engagement or public services and tell them what you're willing to bring to them.
So an editorial review.
It's fine.
That's what you're looking for?
Sure, yeah.
Margaret asks, is an audiobook's chances affected by whether or not narrators are human or AI?
In terms of whether it's like promoted or, well, anyway, we can just answer the AI question generally, I guess. I feel like, I don't know how anyone else feels about it at this panel, but right now it's just in such a state of flux and change every single day. We don't have a policy in place with AI right now because every day we get new information. So it's really difficult. We are kind of restricted at this moment. We also work with Spotify as our distribution partner, and at this current moment, they don't allow distribution of audiobooks narrated by AI. So we do not have AI narrated books on the platform right now. So in that sense, yes, right now it does restrict, but it is changing a lot. So who knows what it will look like in the future.
If I can just add to that, and it's not to contradict, but because the policy is such right now, we all know that there's a lot of AI-generated content from prior to the buzz, right? So the Spotify catalog, the larger catalog, does have AI in it. I mean, let's be honest, it's there. Now, whether or not we're saying, bring it on, that's, I can't speak to that, but it is there, and...
No, sorry, don't worry, yeah.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I would say, because I had not thought of that until this week when I heard it from this conference, we do not own a single AI narrated audiobook in the library collection. Don't have a policy, gonna write one, but right now we don't.
Hi, my name is Naomi. My situation's a little bit different. I'm just getting into audiobooks. I just had my series of 5 finished, got the last one a couple weeks ago. I sell really well direct for the past 4 years. I've done like $1.1 million on my direct store, starting in 2020. And so with my 5-book Texas series that I just got done, my goal for 2024, one of them is to make that $20,000 investment into $100,000 worth of income on my direct store. And I didn't really know much about audiobooks. I would just wanted to get them done because I knew I could sell them. And then I found out Amazon was going to take like 75% of my royalties to go on Audible and still sell on my store. And I feel like I didn't build a $1 million store to give Amazon 75% of my income for them to do nothing. So now I'm here at 20Books trying to figure out the best way to distribute my audiobooks without using Amazon. And anybody that I ask is like, no, you have to put your stuff on Audible. And I'm like, no, because I'm not taking just 25%. I just the principals, maybe I'm crazy because they're like, you're gonna lose money, blah, blah, but I'm gonna make so much more money than I would on Audible on my own store. So anyway, do you have any advice, or what's the best way for me to just get my audiobooks everywhere? Do I need to go to Spotify directly and go to Hoopla directly? Can I just do it all in one place? What? I don't know. Sorry.
Well, I think that's one of the advantages of potentially working with a partner. I mentioned we are already working with over 65 digital audiobook platforms. So there is kind of a one-stop shop, so to speak. There, you know,
But
other.
you publish them, don't you?
We distribute and publish. Blackstone in particular.
So I could just distribute and not publish.
Absolutely.
Okay, what fees or like?
Well, it would be a standard royalty share.
Oh, okay,
So
I
a
see.
non-licensed deal, in most aspects, you get a higher royalty if you've already made the investment on the production of the audiobook and you're just looking for a distributor. In those senses, you would get a higher royalty share versus a licensed deal.
And then if I do that, it's got access to libraries and Barnes
Yeah.
and Noble via Spotify
Yep.
and all.
Speaking
those
for
things.
Blackstone, we don't treat our distribution titles any differently than we do one of our own licensed titles.
Okay.
And you'll
awesome.
get CDs.
What?
We do,
Oh.
we
You'll
do
get the
still have
CDs.
CDs, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Hi. So I attended ALA conference in Chicago earlier this year, and I had a chapter book on display in a booth. And from that, I received all the contact information for the librarians that stopped by the booth. So I went to the list and filtered it to like ones that I felt were, like children's librarians. But I haven't reached out to any of them yet. Do you have any tips for reaching out to the librarians to, gauge their interest in acquiring my chapter book in their library?
This is hard because we see so much, and so much of it is not quality that sometimes we miss the quality because we're so used to looking at the not quality. So once again, promote yourself elsewhere so that you can refer to that promotion when you write us a letter and tell us what your book's about. If you don't have sample books to share, because we will not return them, we like to see it, especially if it doesn't have reviews, then sample artwork so we can see. Text-to-picture ratio is a big deal, even in a chapter book. Summaries. Really, if you can hit the grammar highlights and keep it to a page, you're leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of letters that we get. But having some sort of established presence elsewhere or having a review that you can point to makes a difference. Who's it for? What's it about? Why is it different? And can we see it? And can we get it easily? Oh, yay. Yeah, that helps. That helps. And our vendors that we purchase from, because I know all of you want to approach us directly and have us buy from you, and that's great, but buying from you is 12 steps that I don't have to take if I buy from Blackstone. Or if I buy from one of our book vendors. So consider approaching a book vendor as well to stock and distribute your book. If it is self-published, Brodart, Ingram. Yeah, absolutely. Ingram can help promote. But yes, tell us that it's easily accessible for us, then we'll look.
So I think the name of the illustrator was missed. So
Gilpin. Stephen Gilpin, yeah, which is a name we know, so that helps.
Okay, you mentioned that you look at reviews from Kirkus. What other sources of reviews do you use? And then I have another question after that.
Who knew libraries were so popular? I feel great. Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, New York Review of Books, but also some of the regional literary magazines sometimes will do reviews. Newspapers, the USA Today kind, but also regional newspapers. I can't think of any online, but I know there are some.
So these are a lot of these sources are basically places that will review books from the major publishers.
Exactly.
So what
But
about people that are involved with direct sales?
If it's the kind of book, and I know not everything is, but Goodreads, readinggroupguides.com, that kind of word of mouth helps us as well, particularly if you contact us and let us know you have a book, and you can find discussion about it here at this link, that helps. Even Amazon reviews, if there are more than one and they're spread out over more than a couple of days, that is helpful.
Okay, next question. How do you decide whether you're going to buy an audiobook from Overdrive versus Hoopla?
We buy it all. We buy it all. A platform would not deter us. Sometimes there are exclusive. Library districts with less money will only choose one platform to buy it from. We don't have that problem, so we like to promote it everywhere. Yeah, I don't know. I know who's the biggest, but not necessarily the best. And they all have different, they carry different stuff.
And what's your personal opinion of Overdrive versus Hoopla?
Oh, Overdrive.
Yeah.
But I love Hoopla, but Hoopla does books, ebooks, audiobooks, and videos and TV. So I love Hoopla for different reasons, and music. You can get music on Street Date right there on Hoopla. But Overdrive is the one that patrons from all over the country come and ask for.
I'm not very familiar with audiobooks until my kids decided. I knew they loved Brandon Sanderson, and so that's what I bought him for gifts. So I'm really new to that. But we write fiction, but we also do some nonfiction. How does that work with ebooks? And like if it was a recipe book, that probably wouldn't be an audiobook, correct? Okay. And then children's books, what percentage of those are audio? Are a lot of children's books audio?
It's definitely, as you can see from the slides, it's a
Right.
growing market. So the publishers are definitely adding more and more audiobooks in that genre. So you're seeing more and more of that, but it's definitely a subset of what you can find in the adults. But there's a high demand, so.
And I would love to just add real fast is that when we think about people who are consuming across formats, early data from Barnes & Noble is that the young adult and kids books we're seeing cross-format purchasing. It's not just the audiobook, but also the complementary print book.
Janet had a follow-up question for Rebecca related to the question she asked about getting into libraries. You mentioned that you were going to write a policy for your library. She was curious if you could give us a summary of what that policy would be.
I am not touching AI with a 10-foot pole. I am going to review the Screen Actors Guild contract that hopefully will get ratified and see what they decided to do. Sometimes you get blindsided. Right now, we're fending off book challenges right and left, so we haven't really had time to scrutinize. My sense, my leaning, is that we are not in favor of such, but honest to God, it's a conversation we need to have amongst ourselves. And I will review that Screen Actors Guild contract because that was a central sticking point. And industries guide industries. You know, nobody wants to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you to all of you. I do have a question in the library space. How important is an LCCN to library purchasing at this point?
Meh, not as important as it used to be.
Okay, so if it was not on a book, it's still going to be easy for you to acquire if it's through one of the major distributors?
Yes, probably.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah. So it looks like, oh no, more questions.
I just
No, go
wanted
ahead.
to ask, it's along the AI thing. AI cover, I get the impression from this conference, and obviously I spent $20,000 this year doing like real audiobooks with narrators, but what is the approach to like AI for cover art? Specifically, like my cover designer actually has a thing that's like, click this if we can use AI generated, especially since I write historical. It's like hard to find historical figures. Like, click this if I can use AI in your cover art. Is that something where like libraries are like, oh, no AI covers or those kinds of things?
I can't really speak to the library preference, but I can say for Blackstone and our cover artwork, we do use AI as an assist, basically. We have designers that are trying to design hundreds and hundreds of covers, and time is of the essence, of course. So they may use AI to get, 5 to 10 examples. And then those designers ultimately will kind of look at those, and they might find specific things in each one of those, but ultimately the designer is hands-on and will create the final product at Blackstone.
Everyone else tends to agree with that.
I'm going to
No
tell a
one's
cover
disagreeing.
art story. So we carry large print versions of regular print books, and we learned that large print cover art is different, and it's always kind of generic and cheesy looking. My guess is that it is largely AI generated, and people notice. It displays differently in our online catalog. People notice on the shelf, and they always ask, why is that? Cover art has its own distribution guidelines and its own royalties. It's a big deal. Yeah, we hate generic cover art. We really do hate it. But if a designer is using it, we expect that if a human being touched AI and made something of it, that's a human being using a tool. So that's not a problem. Thank God that they are out there designing good cover art that doesn't look like our large print cover art.
Thank you.
I hope this isn't too off topic, but what kind of hashtags do you like to use on TikTok for libraries?
I don't know, let me text my daughter. Yeah, no, book talk. I mean, book talk is a thing, but no, you got to find something similar and then emulate it.
There's library talk, there's book talk, there's thriller talk, there's just about
Thank you.
There's not like clean romance book talk though. That doesn't really exist. I keep hoping it does, but it doesn't always.
I have another quick question, kind of geared towards Barnes & Noble. You see different things in groups online about how to get your physical book into Barnes & Noble, and there's a lot that every store is different. It depends on the manager, and I know I approached my local store and kind of got shut down, and I wasn't didn't want to ask, let me talk to your manager. I didn't want to be pushy. So do you have tips for finding the right person to talk to at the store, or?
Yeah, it's we call it the white whale. On the Barnes & Noble Press side, even though I've been with the company for a very long time, it still is one of those challenges, and I think it has a lot to do with the legacy of the perception of print on demand, but also returnability and this massive catalog from Ingram that flows through. All I will say is that right now, if you've seen the press about Barnes & Noble, our CEO, James Daunt, who also runs Waterstones in the UK, he's been very out there in the press constantly, and the last couple of years have been transformative for Barnes & Noble, and I'm feeling really good about next year and the year beyond. My manager of Barnes & Noble Press, we've had conversations with our colleagues who are on the store side about getting the indies better represented in stores. The administrative process, you were saying earlier about, it's better to work with Overdrive because it's not 12 steps. That's kind of how it is right now. It's like 12 steps to get your book into. So we're gonna really work on that. In terms of tips for right now, it does seem a little inconsistent across the chain, which managers are open to it and which ones aren't. If you are a Barnes & Noble Press author, we are happy to be an intermediary to the extent that we can. And for someone to come to us and say we're having a real problem, and we can do some reach out in that way. All I can say is be patient right now.
Because I think they cannot hear.
I hear what you're saying though. You're saying you're going through Ingram, and you're like, well, how do I do that? You're not through Barnes & Noble Press. Understood. No, I understand that completely. So the question is would it be better to go through Barnes & Noble Press? The only thing I would say to that is that because we are a very small team and we have a lot of titles through Barnes & Noble Press, it's just a matter of bandwidth. So it's hard to take, if you will, no disrespect, like kind of a random request, can you, hello, we do have a relationship with Ingram though. So if you want to bubble up, then we can talk to our Ingram rep about it. So if you get love from the Ingram rep, then it can go through our channels. I'm sorry, that's a little abstract. And we have about half a minute left, so I'll let Ann finish.
If we're promoting with or distributing with Draft to Digital to you, is that the same as having come directly to you?
We also have a relationship with Draft to Digital through the traditional channel, not Barnes & Noble Press. But what I would say is if you want to come up afterward, we can talk about that a little more, and I can give you my card, etc.
All right, so this concludes our panel. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest.